If you were stationed deep in the Pacific jungles during World War II, your survival often depended on how well you could keep your gear intact. Rain soaked everything, humidity rotted supplies, and nothing seemed to stay bound for long, except for one mysterious substance that soldiers and engineers swore by. It wasn't a modern polymer or a factory-made resin. It was a secret, improvised adhesive that could seal tents, repair weapons, patch boats, and hold even under the relentless assault of tropical rain. This was the hidden formula for waterproof glue used in the jungle, a piece of field chemistry so reliable that it kept operations running when everything else fell apart. The jungle's conditions forced soldiers to rethink everything about adhesives. During the Pacific campaigns of World War II, Allied troops quickly discovered that ordinary glue was useless in the tropics. Animal-based adhesives like hide glue or fish glue melted away in the heat and humidity, while rubber cement dissolved in the constant damp. The rain didn't stop for days, sometimes weeks, and equipment needed to stay sealed, waterproof and functional. From patching canoes and ration tins to sealing communication cables and repairing uniforms, the need for a waterproof adhesive was urgent. Supply lines couldn't always deliver factory-produced sealants, so military engineers and local guides had to get creative. They turned to natural sources, resins, plant saps, tree latexes and even ash, to craft waterproof glues that didn't depend on temperature-sensitive compounds. What they developed was a field-ready mixture that could hold in the wettest, muddiest, most punishing conditions known to man. The backbone of the World War II jungle glue came from tree latex, the same kind of milky sap used to make early rubber. In Southeast Asia and the Pacific, local species such as Ficus elastica and Hevea brasiliensis produced this latex abundantly. Soldiers or native guides would tap these trees just like syrup collection, letting the white sap drip into a container. On its own, latex was flexible but not durable. It needed reinforcement to make it adhesive and water-resistant. This is where resin entered the picture. Pine resin or damar gum, collected from tree bark, added the hardness and tackiness needed for bonding. Soldiers would, melt the resin over low heat until it became a thick, sticky liquid, then mix it with the fresh latex sap in specific proportions, usually about 3 parts resin to 1 part latex. The result was a semi-viscous adhesive that, once cooled, formed a waterproof seal. When brushed thinly onto wood, cloth or metal, it hardened to a resilient, flexible film that resisted water, heat and wear. In emergencies, even tar or pitch could replace resin, though it created a darker, stronger-smelling product. The important part was the balance. Too much resin made the glue brittle, while too much latex made it weak in heat. Getting it right, turned the concoction into a field soldier's best friend. Field reports from the Pacific Theatre show the glue being used in remarkable ways. Patrol units in New Guinea used it to waterproof canvas tents and repair inflatable rafts. Signal Corps teams sealed joints in communication cables to keep rainwater from shorting circuits. Some medical units even used a purified version to seal bandages from infection when cloth and wax weren't available. Australian forces, they learned from local islanders how to mix crushed charcoal or fine ash into the glue, which made it heat-resistant and allowed it to seal cracks in cooking pots or water containers. Jungle commandos would coat their machete sheaths with a layer of the glue to help prevent leather rot. Even native scouts, well, they applied it to the soles of their improvised sandals, giving them a bit of extra grip and protection in the mud. The glue wasn't just functional, it was strategic too. Since it dried clear and blended right into natural surfaces, it turned out to be perfect for camouflage repairs on field gear, helping soldiers steer clear of detection while still maintaining their equipment's integrity. For those of you interested in historical methods or survival applications, making a modern replica of this wartime adhesive is actually quite straightforward, using natural or easily available materials. First, you'll want to collect tree resin, which you can usually find as hardened, amber-like lumps on pine or similar trees. Crush the resin into small pieces and heat it slowly over a low flame until it melts into a liquid. Then add natural latex or rubber solution. If you don't have access to raw sap, a small amount of liquid rubber or even tire patching latex will do the trick. Stir the mixture constantly until it all becomes nice and uniform. To improve durability, you'll want to add just a pinch of fine wood ash or even powdered charcoal while you're stirring. Once it's cooled down a bit, you'll notice the mixture gets thick and tacky. At this stage, you can brush it onto whatever surfaces you're aiming to waterproof, be it leather wood or fabric. Then just let it sit and dry for several hours, and you'll end up with a strong, flexible seal that can resist water for days. In a survival scenario, you can actually substitute resin with candle wax and sap with natural rubber from rubberized items, like old tire inner tubes. The principle stays the same, really. Combine flexibility and hardness, and you'll get a balanced, weatherproof bond. What's truly fascinating about this formula is that it wasn't invented in some laboratory, but rather out in the wild, under pressure, with very limited tools. Soldiers relied on local wisdom, knowledge that was passed down by indigenous communities who had been using tree sap and resin for centuries to waterproof boats, repair tools, and seal containers. Wartime necessity just sped up its application and refinement, you know. The waterproof jungle glue represents more than just a forgotten craft. It's a story of human adaptability. You know, it proved that even in the harshest environments, innovation doesn't come from abundance, but from understanding nature and working with it. Many of today's waterproof adhesives, from silicone sealants to epoxy resins, rely on the same chemical principles discovered in the jungle. The goal remains identical: combine elasticity with hydrophobic sealing. Survival instructors, bushcrafters, and outdoor enthusiasts still recreate this glue using pine pitch, beeswax, and charcoal, applying it to everything from waterproofing boots to sealing water flasks. If you've ever repaired a torn tarp with pine sap or sealed a crack in wood using melted wax and ash, you've unknowingly replicated a method perfected in World War II's tropical hell. It's living history, practical, enduring, and still incredibly useful. The hidden formula for waterproof glue used in the jungle wasn't just a wartime trick. It was proof of human ingenuity, thriving under impossible conditions. It bridged the gap between ancient craft and modern chemistry, between survival instinct and scientific reasoning. If you found this deep dive valuable, make sure to subscribe to In the Beginning and share this video with other history enthusiasts and survivalists. Because history's greatest inventions weren't always built in laboratories. They were built in the mud, under rain, and in the quiet fight to endure.